Well, let's try this again. This is Q&A. This was supposed to go up Monday. It did not go up Monday, or if it did, it didn't stay up Monday long because for whatever reason the audio didn't record on that video. I was busy that day, and video just didn't get up right. I wasn't gonna re-record it. It was something from the recorder that I was using, so kind of my own goofy mistake. But hey, my goofy mistake is your benefit because this is gonna be a double video day. So say thank you to my stupidity for the double video day. Let's get into the question. Hey Q, do you think the opponent's defensive line is queuing off the flow of our offensive line too fast in these outside zone run plays? It may just be me, but it looked like during those zone runs to the left and right side, the D-line was overcommitting constantly. I was wondering if this is play design concept and Kevin's system that could take advantage of this. I mean, he does. There are plays, right? What you're talking about is when the Browns run not outside zone. Outside zone's a little bit different than wide zone. Browns run wide zone. It's a common mistake people make, but outside zone, which is it's not like a stretch right. It's more or less a push increase kind of deal, right? And what teams usually did was like slant. Now what they're doing is playing the crease lanes and forcing Nick Chubb to adjust his vision, right? What they have found works, and the same thing happened to Derrick Henry. Now, Derrick Henry doesn't work off of creases as much as he just works off of getting downhill. That's where Nick Chubb and him differentiate. But Nick Chubb requires or has required to break off those big runs and to be Nick Chubb, he needs those crease lanes. That's how he sees the field. He just sees the field better going against grain. And what defenses have been doing is playing the crease lanes. So taking that away from him, finding ways to take that away from him. And part of the reason they're able to take that away from him is because the interior offensive line play has not been as strong, especially at center and right guard. Yodi has gotten a ton of flack. I feel like it's not as warranted as like the flack that Wyatt Teller should be given, because Yodi Freehold, he is a emergency center. Wyatt Teller is supposed to be one of the best guards in football and is paid like it. He got to play better than this. But those two pretty much being a peanut gallery for the last 3 weeks has really done a number on the Browns' ability to get those crease lanes. And also, Nick Chubb has to adjust, right? He has to figure out, if they're not going to give me these crease lanes, I need to adjust my vision. And if there's one thing I can be critical of Nick Chubb is when he doesn't get those crease lanes, his vision isn't great, right? Those crease lanes seen against the grain, he's great there. But when it comes like to just reading a straight up run and getting what's available, what the defense is going to give you, he struggles with that at times, right? That's why I don't think he's a great short yardage back, despite the fact that he seems from the outside looking in to be a great short yardage back, because he's big and he breaks a lot of tackles. But if you actually look at where those tackles are broken, if you actually look at where he likes to run the ball, it ain't what you think. He's not a short yardage guy. It's a different skill than what Nick Chubb has. And Nick Chubb's a slant and crease guy. That's not a skill set and a style that suits short distance running. He has to figure that out. If he wants to stay, look, everybody complains about Nick Chubb not being on the field on all 3 downs. Nick Chubb has become an incredible player, but at some point he has to fix his issues when it comes to short yardage, which he's been at best average at his entire career, if not below average, and receiving. If he fixes that, he's a 3-down back, especially in a system that's not going to be running the ball as much as they transition to more of a Deshaun Watson-focused system. So Nick Chubb has to start to make some adjustments here. The league has finally caught up to him. He's got to make some adjustments, and he will, because he's a great player. I have confidence in him to make these adjustments. My criticism of Nick Chubb is not hatred of Nick Chubb. It is just criticism. And what I am seeing is that The offensive line play stinks, but the reason that that's mattering so much is also because his vision is not adapting in a way that can run well without the offensive line playing great. And that's not good. He needs to be able to be a decent running back if the offensive line isn't going to be good. And you might think that's a tough thing to ask, but if you're going to pay a running back, and we already have paid Nick Chubb, you're going to have to make it happen when the offensive line ain't. You can't be dependent on it because a running back that's dependent on the offensive line is a cheap one. Got to step it up there. Got to be better than that. Nick Chubb knows it. Some of y'all know it. I know it. He knows it. He got to be better. Brian with the next question. Hey, Q, seen a lot of blame game thrown around for the poor performances on offense the last few games, especially Stefanski's play calling. From what I've seen, the O-line's the biggest weakness on the team. We can't pass or run block. I've seen a stat that said Posick, since Posick has gotten here, it's been the second worst offensive line in the NFL. Nah, I don't think it's all on Posick, man. I mean, Posick's injury. I refuse to believe that, one, because these issues were happening before Posick got hurt. This was happening in the Miami game. This had signs of happening a couple weeks before that. So it's not just Posick. Posick's been out there. There's been problems. Wyatt Teller's been all year with Posick out there. So it's not just Posick. Will he help? Certainly. But is he going to fix the whole problem? No. One of the problems is it seems like Wyatt Teller's not playing well. He's probably injured. Another problem is Jack Conklin's been bad. Well, he's not been bad. I'm not going to say bad. He ain't been good, though. He's been average at best. Jed Wills has been slightly above average. Some games he's good. Some games he's very, very average. Joe Bitonio has been pretty solid all year. And Ethan Posick has been pretty solid all year. The rule of offensive line play tends to be if you have three good ones, you can live. And, when Posick was out there, you had two locks. Posick was a lock. Joe Bitonio was a lock. And then you're betting between Jed Wills and Jack Conklin to play good. And if one of those two plays good, then you're going to be fine. It's supposed to be that Wyatt Teller plays well, too. He's kind of slid under the radar. He's been bad. And if he is injured, which doesn't really explain some of the misses I'm seeing, quite frankly, it's still a concern, even if he's injured, the tape that he's putting out there. Because he looks terrible at times. Like, straight up looks terrible. I know a lot of people like to get on Jed Wills. And I get it. Jed has terrible body language. And dudes who have terrible body language are always susceptible to people who want to be mad being mad at them. But Jed ain't the one being paid a bunch of money, man. 77 is, and 77's been bad. We're relying on 77 to be good. He's not. He's got to step it up. Straight up. Point blank, period. Adam. With the next season coming around and our center coming back, this is a great question. So he's basically asked me, like, hey, with Posick being so good and Nick Harris coming back next year off an injury, what do you do there? Because correct me if I'm wrong, I think Posick is on a 1-year deal. Nick Harris is still on his rookie deal. But he's coming off a knee injury, and we've seen Posick be really good at center. Have no idea. I think they're probably going to stick with Nick Harris and let Posick walk because he might be expensive. But that's going to be tough. That's going to be a tough one to do. It's a great question. It's going to be something we watch during the offseason. Thank you for that, Adam. The next question comes from Ashton, who says, what can we look forward to this offseason? You think bigger name free agents want to come to Cleveland and play with a guy like Watson or Garrett, possibly a linebacker, D-tackle, safety? Okay, not big name, right? Like, you're not getting the big name free agent guys that are sub 27 and are going to be in line for a ton of money. Those guys are going to teams with a ton of cap space. So don't set your sights on those guys. those aren't the guys you're getting, right? And anybody trying to say you're going to get Deron Payne or something crazy like that, look, I would love getting Deron Payne. But do I think it's realistic we're going to get Deron Payne? Hell no. You're not getting no damn Deron Payne. But what you can get is those second and third day of free agency veteran players that kind of move the needle a little bit, right? Maybe you can keep a Clowney. Maybe you can get, not a Deron Payne, but somebody who's just below Deron Payne's class as a veteran. Maybe you can get a vet safety, right? Like, you're going to have to keep your eye on what veteran players get cut because they're cap casualties and before March. That's going to be important. Well, before February, really, when the new league year starts. So those are going to be the guys the Browns are going to be in the market for. They might be big names because they used to be all pro players and now they're just pretty good pro players. But they're not necessarily going to be like the hot name in free agent. It'd be like getting Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner ain't the Bobby Wagner of old, but he's still pretty damn good. That's what I'm talking about. You're probably going to be getting, right? I think it's time for this team to get a little older since they're going to truly hit win now mode. And I think those vets are how you do it. The next question comes from G Singh, who says, since we basically are out of the playoffs, do you think the front office will fire Woods and Prefer before the season is over just to try new things to see if it works? No, that's ridiculous. Why would they do that? What would be the point? What would be the point? What would be the point? There's no point. I know you said in there just to see new things and what works. What new things are you going to try when it's the guy who was underneath you're just going to be promoting Joe Woods as understudy if you fire Joe Woods right now. What new things do you think is going to happen? Like, it's going to be the same old shit with a different paint job. So there's literally no point in doing that. Conklin gone. Oh, John has a question. Conklin gone after this year. We've known that. But what about one of the guards between them, Watson? Okay, so here's the thing. Yes, the Browns are paying their guards a ton of money, but their tackles are, once Conklin is gone, both of their tackles, James Hudson and Jed Wills, will be on rookie deals. So the money you're not spending on tackle is being spent at guard. So it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. You're looking at it from position. I think you have to look at this from position group, right? The Browns have a budget on the position groups, probably more so than specific positions, right? They have a skill player budget, quarterback's his own budget, and they have a budget for offensive line in total. Since you're getting two premium positions covered with rookie deals, you're not spending big money on that. That money then goes to guard. Maybe a little bit at center, but it mainly goes to guard. On the other side of the ball, obviously, like Miles is eating up a lot of money there, right? So defensive tackle probably going to have to be solved with some vet deals and some draft picks, right? That's just going to be what fills that hole. Because Miles is already paid. Same thing with the secondary, where there's not really a giant hole like John Johnson. That money's just going to be replaced by getting a couple of extra vets, and then linebacker, which I don't think is a big problem with this team. I think just they all got hurt this year. So yeah, I think you would be better served to look at this instead of being like, hey, we're spending a lot of money at guard, and guard's not a premium position, which is a line of thinking. You have to think of it as, where is the money going to be spent and where does the money need to be spent in that position group? And if you have a situation where you have two guys at the premium positions tackle that will be on rookie deals that are probably going to start for you, then the money has to go elsewhere. And if you can do it to retain what are supposed to be two of the best guards in football, why it has been up and down, then you do it. Next question comes from, by the way, I'm shocked nobody's brought up JC Tretter during this whole center debacle that the Browns had. Not that I think it's happening, because I don't think he's playing at this point of the year, and why in the world would he sign to play with a team that has like no playoff hopes? Because like, what are you going to accomplish other than like getting hurt to play football? That, like, I wouldn't do it. But I'm just shocked that hasn't become more of a talking point between like radio people. Like that seems like something prime. You know what I mean? Why didn't the Browns bring in J.C. Treader, or why the Browns should give J.C. Treader a call? Maybe I just opened a can of worms bringing that up, but it just popped into my head talking about this center so much. John Smith for the next question. Do you think we have a super? By the way, before y'all even act like Andrew Berry didn't sign a center, he did. There is they signed a center after the injury. They're just starting Yodi because they feel like that is what Bill Callahan feels like is the best course of action, is Yodi Freehold out there. Which, hey, Bill has a pretty good track record. John Smith says, do you think we have a good shot at a Super Bowl run next year if we don't fire? Look, if Kevin Stefanski wants to attach his job to Joe Woods' performance next year, I can't do nothing to help that. Like, I would defend Kevin Stefanski as a play caller. I would defend him as an offensive mind because I believe he has shown enough for me to find him a defensible person. Versus the bad, I think the good outweighs it at this point. If that changes. But one of the things that can greatly tip the scales in that is if he decides to keep Joe Woods, because the benefit of keeping Kevin Stefanski no longer outweighs the negative. Because the negative then becomes Joe Woods in Mike Prefer. So I wouldn't recommend he do that. But if that's how he goes with it, boy, Joe Woods better have the season of his life, because you about to get your homeboy fired if you do that. Tall says, even with the loss, do you think Watson can carry us to a playoff? No, this is about next season. So, I want to thank everybody for asking the questions. You guys have a great day and good night. When I say, let me rewind so I give Tall 17 actual answer. But when I say it's about next season, I'm like, hey, this is about watching Watson. The same way if Watson were a first overall pick, this season would be about watching the first overall pick play. This is about watching Watson. But that's it for this week's Q&A. You guys have a great day. Have a good night.